recorded at Get a Grip Studios in Toronto, Canada, a Get a Grip management production and in association with the Get a Grip on Lighting podcast. Financially supported by the good folks at the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, this is Restoring Darkness podcast.
This episode of Restoring Darkness is brought to you by Evluma. If you're serious about contributing to the reduction of light pollution, go to evluma.com, hover over products, and click on Dark Sky Friendly Lighting. Both the OmniMax and AreaMax lights are International Dark Sky Association certified. The warmer color temperatures of the OmniMax reduce the more easily scattered blue wavelengths, which contribute to glare and sky glow. With AreaMax lights, you get full cutoff, which also means no uplight and a significantly reduced contribution to sky glow. And all of Evluma's outdoor lighting product lines come with dimmable drivers for even more control. If your customer is looking for dark sky-friendly fixtures with energy savings while still meeting the demands of decorative lighting, look no further than Evluma. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of dark skies.
Welcome back, folks, to the Restoring Darkness podcast. Before we get into the guest today, I want to tell you about the new Restoring Darkness merch. That's right, you go to restoringdarkness.com and you can buy t-shirts, hats, sweaters, all that kind of stuff with the Restoring Darkness brand on it. I was going to wear some today for today's show, but you know what? I bought a whole pile and my kids took it all. And they think it's so super cool. They stole all the sweatshirts, the hoodies, the t-shirts, everything. So it's all gone, but I'm ordering more just like you can at restoringdarkness.com. On today's show, we have Ken Walczak. He is the senior manager of Far Horizons at the Adler Planetarium in Chicago. It's a hands-on science, engineering, and research program for students, volunteers, and the general public. He is a board member of the International Dark Sky Association and an associate member of the IES. He has co-authored numerous papers on the sensing and characterization of light pollution with instruments designed with students and volunteers at the Adler Planetarium, including an inexpensive all-sky imaging camera, a stratospheric light pollution mapping system, and satellite concepts for the remote sensing of light at night. He studied photography and film and previously owned his own furniture and lighting design company. Astronomy and appreciation of the night have been a lifelong passion of his. You can check him out on Twitter at KWALZAR, and he's got some research. We'll put it on the website for you guys all up there. You can click on the links on the restoringdarkness.com website. I'm not going to read it. That's a big, long URL you got there, Ken. Welcome to the show.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. And you know what? I'm super interested in a lot of the stuff on here. I love it when the darkness restoration and the lighting practitioners come together, and you're one of those people. And before we get into this, we've been dialoguing the association that sponsors this show, the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, about a paradigm shift. Now that is often thrown around and most often not true. Okay, so a lot of people talk about paradigm shifts, Ken, but usually they're talking about their dreams or something that's not going to happen. I think in the 21st century, we're going to see a paradigm shift in this industry, I hope. And that shift is from providing people with electric light to providing them with electric light and natural darkness. And so I think that we're going to see that shift. And before we get into all the tools and instruments you've designed, tell me how on your lighting journey you became a darkness lover and became an enthusiast, then an advocate, and now you work basically in the business of understanding darkness and our need for it. Tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, I mean, since I was a kid, I was an astronomy nerd. I grew up in a suburb outside of Chicago, and we even as a kid, don't look north. That's where Chicago is, because you're not going to see anything. South, okay, that's toward farmland. That's where you want to look. And I never thought too much about it until years and years later. If it wasn't for my inability to grasp calculus, I probably would have become an astronomer. Instead, I went the art route, my other creative endeavor, which was photography and film. So that's actually what I studied. So light is also important to that. Actually, I did a lot of my photography at night. Just there's something about the quality of the night that was always fascinating to me. And then as years went by, I sort of lost track of all that fascination with the night sky, mainly because I never saw it. I lived in San Francisco, London, Chicago, places where you're not going to get that opportunity to remind yourself what the night's all about. And it wasn't until I started working at the Adler Planetarium about 12 years ago, maybe, that got reconnected with what a good night means. And on a personal journey, I just said, like, at that time, oh, I got to see stars again. So I would actually take trips. A little project I was doing there where I'd find the darkest site in every state of the U.S. and go on a camping trip there. So I did 12 states before I kind of put that on hiatus. but and that was just mind blowing. Just to know again, like, that's what really reconnected me with this effort, is saying, like, oh my God, everybody should experience this. And living in Chicago, I work with students, mainly teenagers and some undergrads, and almost every single one I asked, hey, raise your hand if you've seen the Milky Way, and no one does. It's so it was that made it really strike home to me, where it's like, we need to do something about this.
I just saw the Milky Way on the weekend. And luckily, Canadians have a very, very quick and easy access, to dark skies. Most of us live very close to the U.S. border, and you just drive north, and oftentimes you can find yourself in areas which, not, I wouldn't call dark sky preserve level, but, very within, an hour drive north of anywhere, you're pretty much in an area where you can see the Milky Way. Again, the quality of the Milky Way can vary, right? You can have it blasting out at you, and other times you can just see the outline of it like a haze, you know? And so, yeah, let me ask you about a question about the lighting industry. In your experience from the lighting industry, did you actually work in outdoor lighting at all? Did you do any outdoor lighting projects or anything like that?
Actually, I did. I was doing more interior lighting design, mainly fixtures, and kind of came from my art perspective. So, yeah, I didn't do outdoor lighting. That wasn't never a concern to me until I put the pieces together, like I said later, where I was like, hey, this is something that should be thought about. Now I'm all in about a good dialogue about, from every part of the circle, from what people are demanding, what people are producing, what people are selling, and how it's being used, and how it could all, so there's parts of that chain that need to be connected. And that's where I feel like talking to you is a great idea for, getting that dialogue going.
Yeah, it's very difficult for what we've kind of termed frontline lighting practitioners to sell darkness friendly or dark sky approved, or whatever you want to call it, whatever the term is. We like darkness restoration and preservation, DRP, and approved equipment, or simply because nobody's trained on it. Most people have zero concern for it in their practice. And so what people want when they change outdoor lights is light pollution. That's what they ask for. Okay, I'm not kidding you. All right, so if you go to a factory or a warehouse or someplace, they want as much light as they want, the brightest possible box they can get on the wall, sending light in all directions as much as they can, regardless as the fact that 80% of it or 90% of it is wasted light. And so that's what the end user is asking for. They're asking for light pollution. And I think municipalities are asking for light pollution when they do upgrade their lights to LED. Now, this is changing incrementally and slowly. There's areas adopting different rules, but as a general understanding, what you'll find is they want 5,000 K, as much uniformity as they can, and to look at it, they want the most glare. So they want to be able to look at the light and see that it's super bright. How can we possibly change that?
Well, it's information. It's I think one of the most important parts is seeing the difference. Most people don't get the, like I was saying, like our teens that we work with here in Chicago, they've never seen the difference what a night sky is supposed to look like or what
Mm-hmm.
nighttime is supposed to look like. So it's not a concern to them. Same thing with consumers. I mean, if you want to put that you know wall pack on the side of your garage lighting up all night for no reason other than you feel like, oh, that's what makes me feel secure or whatever it is, then you don't know that there's alternatives. Um, if all your neighbors are doing the same thing. So I guess what I'm getting at is that I don't know if it's just because I'm so much more connected with the community now over the last few years, but I really feel like there's a change going on, and you kind of mentioned that maybe more people are curious about it or maybe inquiring about it. Um, but dark sky awareness, I think, is growing. And like I'm all for example, connecting to climate issues. Like you said, if those commercial or industrial people are saying like, oh, I just want to blast a lot of light because I don't have to worry about anything if we have a lot of light. Hey, other than all the other issues, if you say like, yeah, but your carbon footprint just went up the roof for no reason. Uh, that's one of the reasons why I worry about LEDs, because there's that rebound effect where you're like, oh, since it's cheap, put some more out there, right? And I'm still, and yeah,
Sorry, I'm just taking notes. You're talking about Jevons paradox. The cheaper something
yeah,
becomes, the more of it we use, right? It's a serious, like,
mm-hmm.
I mean, this is the textbook definition of that paradox is the lighting industry. Now, there's a million different. I got 3 different notes here. Okay, I'm going to try the first one, and I make this one a yes or no because I want to move quickly into the other ones. As you grew older and you became, your astronomy days went behind you, you started providing for your family, you're working a job, less and less time, and then you kind of come back to where you started, and you're like, I want to get back to the stars, and I want to see this. Was that a craving? Was that something in you that, or was it a calling? What was it?
Yeah, I would actually say it was. I think craving is the way to put it. Because remember, I said in my youth, I be out my backyard with the telescope and being able to see just about anything I wanted to see. Hadn't had that experience for so long, and it was just like, hey, wait, yeah, it's been a long time. Um, so I think that's the way to answer that.
The second point is, do you find that the enthusiasts are over focused on residential and under focused on corporate and municipal? I find that whenever I speak to a dark sky advocate, they're often talking about light trespass from neighbor to neighbor, rather than the sources of light pollution, which is not really residential. I mean, you could have a whole neighborhood of ostentatious 50K lights on the sides of houses, but they're not going to be 200-watt LEDs. You know, most people are going to not want a 200-watt LED shining into their neighbor's backyard a lot. That's going to be disrespectful. And so we have this focus where people talk always the anecdote, well, you can shine that 5,000K LED light on your neighbor and da, da, da. Everyone always speaks in terms of residential. But I don't see the problem as really a residential problem. I see it as a corporate and municipal problem. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, I mainly commercial, by the way, and
Yeah.
this is actually leading into to what we do at the Adler, and I would agree with you. Well, put it this way: there's 2 issues you're talking about there. One is your immediate environment. If you got your neighbor's light shining in your bedroom window, yeah, you do care about residential lighting. But when you're looking at the big picture about how we're affecting just the nighttime environment in general, then yeah, then I agree with you. It's eh, municipal, but I would say number one is actually commercial use. In fact, that's if you don't mind me going into a little detail here about we one of the things we do at the Adler, we designed and built a system that we put on high altitude balloons that fly to the stratosphere. So we'll be up to almost 30 kilometers up, looking down,
Whoa.
taking thousands and thousands of images,
Wow.
and we can map a area that's about 1,000 square kilometers, and in a single flight. From that, we can actually do land use analysis, saying like, all right, what's this zone for, and how much light is coming out of it. And so, one of the early results we got, we've done 2 flights in the last within the last year over Indianapolis, Indiana. So a city of about 1 million. And one of the results of what we found was that commercial accounts for 54%, almost 55% of all light emission being shining up. And then this is what I found fascinating. Oh, by the way, a street light, only about 15%.
Wow.
So when this is where the science can actually help inform the policy. Where
Sure.
if you say like, all right, hey, we got to change all the street lights, it's like, well, yeah, you're making, it's an improvement, but you're only making a dent. So that commercial, let me just break that down a little bit. One of the things we found in our initial analysis of this area was that if you take parking lots, car wash, what do you call it, the service stations, the gas stations, car dealerships, what do they all have in common?
Yeah.
That accounts for the vast majority of even commercial. So car culture. And then throw in the streetlights, I guess. So we're talking, if we don't focus on cars, I mean, I know I have no idea how to solve this problem. I'm just giving you the info. We focus on cars and the way we use light for automobiles, transportation, things like that. You're making a serious dent in the problem.
That's so. I like every time you talk, I have so many different questions. Okay, so let me first deal with this 30-kilometer balloon. That's a long way up, man. That's high. So you're up there. You got a good scope of things. You can look at it from a very regional level. Like you could start mapping the Midwest or whatever, right? Did you ever happen to look over Southern Ontario and see all those greenhouses in Southern Ontario? Did you ever have a look at those?
Now, I've done that through other means, through satellite data, because we've only flown regionally, around the Chicago area. We want to perfect the system that anybody could pick it up and build their own or use ours or invite us over to do it. Hey, we can come over to Ontario if you want. But I know Leamington and is it Kingsville?
Yeah, Kingsville, Leamington.
Yeah. That is a serious problem. In fact, I last year I wrote a post for the IDA about greenhouses and just how much they impact.
And they're so weird looking too. They're so weird looking. Mm-hmm. It's like a purple haze. It looks like a UFO army is landing in Southern Ontario. But there's good news on that front. There's people working on that from the Royal Astronomical Society of Canada and some other folks that I've come to know through this work, and they've actually passed an ordinance. They have to shield it by 90%. And the dark sky advocates are not happy with 90%. They're not happy with 90%. But even 10% is a ton, but that's a good start. I told them, okay, you start with that because incremental progress builds upon itself. Okay, so let's move into, I want to ask you about the increase in light pollution. Okay, did the outdoor LED lighting boom, which we've all observed, okay, the switch from HPS, the Cobra HPS type lighting, which is low Kelvin temperature, while not straight down, you don't have that glary effect of an LED where it's pushing light from fixture to fixture, much more uniform. Has there been a significant increase in light pollution that you've observed in the last 10 years?
Well, let me just say that from the work that we've done, we haven't been in the business of this remote sensing for long enough to do a long-term study. But I can tell you from the research, here's the problem. This is another reason why I think light pollution, by the way, is kind of a new, gaining some new interest over the last decade or two, is that we've never really had ways of seeing the big picture. Up until 2012, when a satellite was launched that can actually monitor and image the Earth at night. So we've only had about a decade of consistent data to tell us the story. Now, here's the one thing about that satellite is, I'm getting to you to answer your question, is that it sees the full spectrum except for blue light.
Yes, Chris Kaiba told me that. Chris Kaiba in Germany, years ago, he said we can't even measure anything over 3,500 Kelvin or something like that.
Yep, that's about right. So you can switch out all the HPS you want. Put it, you can even go to 3000K, like, and you're not going to see any change from space, from the main data set that we have. That's one of the reasons why we're trying to do what we're doing
That's a
here. Is
catastrophe.
we actually see. Yeah, exactly. So according to everybody, they're like, "Hey, look, we've dropped the amount of light pollution because we switched to LEDs," and it's like, maybe you haven't. And I just want to quote one study that was done, it was just released last year by some folks from the National Park Service here in the U.S. That was they looked at a town that did a retrofit. This is in Washington State. They only switched out about 4,000 HPS to mainly 3,000K and some 4,000K in some of the roads. They did a before and after observation from that satellite, and guess what? The satellite said, "You just dropped the amount of light emission." It's like, yeah, great, all right. Well, they did observations from the ground and found that the sky glow actually increased. So, just proof that we're missing the story. So we need better tools out there. We need better observations. And so, long and short, I can't tell you definitively, scientifically, how much it's changing. Like here in Chicago, we did a retrofit over the last 5 years of 270,000 HPS to 3,000K LEDs. I mean, they're better shielded, but they are a lot bluer. Blue scatters. That's where you get that glow. So I don't know.
Well, at least they're not 5,000 Kelvin or 4,000 Kelvin. That's
Oh
a
God, yeah.
win. That's a win. Like most of the stuff up here is 4 or 5,000 Kelvin. And just like a flat LED.
I can't even imagine 5,000. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're off the show. That's the question I wanted to have answered for having you on. I'm kicking you off.
All right.
No. Okay. So for the sake of just understanding here, let's go through these different tools. So we unpack them a little bit, and then I got a ton of more questions. I don't want to go for 2 hours here because I just have a feeling you and I could probably chat for a long time about light pollution. So for the sake of the audience here, let's get this out here. Okay, let's talk about the inexpensive all sky imaging camera. How inexpensive is it? How does it work? Is it on the balloon? Just tell me the technical parts of that.
That's a ground camera. It's only about the size of I don't know, just about 10 centimeters by a little thinner than that. It's a DIY thing. We built it from just our own electronics, and it runs about just to build it, just the parts is about $200. So $200 takes an entire picture of the night sky. Those fisheye lens, kind of images you see. So the entire horizon and all the way around. And it also automatically takes pictures every 5 minutes. So you put it out at night, takes images all through the night. You pull it back in, and then we process the data, and we can tell you not only what color your sky is, how bright your sky is, but we can actually, because of that time sequence, we can see like, hey, you know what? Our light's being switched off. Is the sky throughout the night getting dimmer? Is it getting darker, or are there certain directions that it's all coming from? We can tell a lot from that. And like
does
I said,
it know the difference between moonlight and starlight and electric light?
Well, it's just like a regular camera, RGB, red, green, blue, and so you see the moon in the sky. So we can actually subtract that out, like if it was there. Ideally, if you want to see what's left over that's not natural, you do it without the moon in the sky. The funny thing is, I don't know if it's a U.S. thing or a Chicago thing or whatever it is, but I hear from a lot of folks, especially in Europe, that'll say like, oh, you can take observations with something like an instrument like this. Now, other people use like a SLR camera with a $1,000 fisheye lens and stuff. So you're talking a couple grand for a similar system. I mean, ours is obviously lower resolution, but it's focused on the task at hand. They'll say like, oh, you take images throughout the night and you'll see, that town dropped their lights. They turned off their whatever commercial lights or turned off whatever else, and you can actually see that drop. I have yet to see that happen anywhere in the U.S. I don't know if it's like I said, a U.S. urban thing
electricity
or whatever,
is a lot more expensive in Europe, right? So they've there's all sorts of Europeans are far more efficient. I'm not getting, listen, you Europeans out there, don't even start. It's not because they are better than us, which is often the Europeans are so much better. It's simply because things cost more in Europe. Like fuel costs more, electricity costs more, everything seems to cost more, and that's the whole thrust of carbon emission pricing. Is that if you add a cost to something, you'll change behavior. I don't want to go down that track right now, but I just don't like the Europeans getting on their soapboxes. I love you guys. Don't worry. But let's talk now about the stratospheric light pollution mapping system. That's what you're talking about, where the balloon goes up. All right, tell me a little bit about the mapping system, how it works, and what you plan to do with it.
Well, our original intention was to map Chicago. Ideally, we would have been able to do it before our lighting transition, the retrofit. It was the solar eclipse back in 2016 or whatever that sort of like delayed us because we were doing some other stuff. And that's when Chicago started its retrofit. We had everything going great. And then in the summer of 2019, we were flying over Chicago. Like I said, we're about 28 kilometers over Chicago. And there's 3 cameras, one that points straight down and 2 that point at an angle. Because the way that light comes out of a city, especially with what we call urban canyoning, you kind of don't want to just look straight down. You also want to see like how much light is coming from the side, because buildings, trees, and everything block a light of that. What would be that vertical luminance. So we were flying over Chicago, and our balloon burst. It wasn't supposed to burst; it was supposed to vent out and get it. And our entire payload landed in the lake. So that was. We were rebuilding our system. We were ready to fly again in the spring of 2020, and well, as you know, not much happened in the spring of 2020 other than us all locking down. So this is where we had a little bit of delay. We're now back up and running, and because of that big giant lake that we have to avoid, we decided on starting to image Indianapolis to test out all our systems, and with it, from that vantage point. We not only we'll hover and slowly drift over a city or region for about 2 hours. So that entire time we're taking images. We'll collect over 10,000 images in a single flight. Then we do a lot of GIS mapping of that thing, and then we can lay it all out and not only look at where the light's coming from on a regional scale, but also get color information. We can see those 4,000K and 5,000K LEDs really, really well compared to like HPS, or even you can definitely tell other HIDs. Mercury vapor if they still got them, things like that. So we can distinguish the light kinds, where they are, and also their brightness, how much they emit up to the stratosphere.
That wouldn't be their brightness. That would be their percentage of wasted light.
Yeah. Should I say, you're right.
Because you can have a really bright light. You
it's
can have a really bright light source that is dark sky friendly. You just have to shield it correctly and
you're
mount it
right.
correctly. Yeah, it's not. It's
I
not just
think,
about brightness.
and that's a really good point, because what we're typically observing is the pool of light created by outdoor lights, right? Because ideally, you're not going to have a light just pointed up, but that's a whole other story. We've got examples of that. But yeah, you're right. We're looking at what's spilling on the ground, and then reflecting up in most cases.
What you're not?
So,
you're looking
yeah,
at
you're
what's
right.
you're looking at what's reflecting up. No, you're looking at what's spilling out of light fixtures directly. Correct? Or what's actually reflecting up?
Yeah. So like a typical image. Like I said, we have about 5-meter resolution. So you have a parking lot in front of a hardware store or whatever it is, and we can see every single pool of light from every single fixture. You usually don't see the fixtures themselves. You're right, because we're looking at it from the. Now that's where, in cooperation with doing ground surveys, we can correlate. Oh, this is how we go out there. We can go out there with light meters and spectrometers and everything else to figure out where that light is coming from, so we can correlate what we're seeing from above. So for example, we can calculate how much literally energy is coming out into the night sky with our high altitude balloon
But
maps.
but let me ask you this:
Um,
when you're looking at this light pollution, so the problem with cameras and photographing light is that they adjust, right? They adjust to light. That's what cameras are taking a picture of is light, right? Am I correct?
yeah,
Right? They're actually so when you're trying to photograph light, it's a challenge. I know this because inside when we would do before and after pictures of lighting systems, it doesn't always correlate to how much light was increased or decreased because the cameras themselves adjust to the light level. But let me ask you this: what I'm trying to figure out is the most light pollution re-reflected light off the ground? Or is it just light spilling into the air from wasted light? That's what I'm asking you, because my
hmm
feeling is that a lot of that if you're photographing a bright ground, that's okay. That's what we want, right? We want to have safe spaces. We want to have lit up sidewalks and roads. We just don't want the light wasted and going off into the sky. Is that light pollution you're photographing, or is that just the light that's on the ground mostly?
hmm
Do you understand what I'm
Yeah, no,
asking?
that's a good point. Yeah, because obviously, if it was pitch black, if there was no light at all, we wouldn't see anything. Now, if that light was shining up, yeah, we could see those sources that are shining up. But now, we do see those. By the way, we do see a lot of upward pointing light. But you're right that if you're having, well, let's go back to the parking lot example. If you're having a parking lot illuminated by overhead lights that we're not seeing the light, we're just seeing the light pool. Yeah, you're saying that's what it's for, right?
Hmm.
We're seeing it reflecting off the ground. I
So,
mean,
no,
so
but
you're,
that's my question is this: is the light
yeah.
actually? Are you taking a picture of a bright spot, or is that light is a large percentage of that light reflecting off the asphalt or off the concrete and going back into the sky? Because I guess that's what you're taking a picture of. I guess it would be, or am I like what is is that
In
light
most cases,
Let's
yes.
say you have a shielded light, fully shielded,
Mhm.
2200 Kelvin light pointed straight down. Is that light that you're photographing also bouncing up and going back up into the sky as light pollution? That's my question.
Yes. Now, but that's
Mm.
not all the cases. But yes, you're right. So we are seeing useful light as well as uh, wasted light. Now,
Hmm.
this is let me get to that one point you made about the cameras. Our cameras are fixed; they're a fixed exposure and a fixed focal length and everything else, so they don't change. If the scene gets brighter, they're not adjusting. So we have it's calibrated in the sense that if something's brighter, it shows up brighter. If something's dimmer, it's not adjusting for the scene. But that's where, remember, I said we have these angled cameras as well. Now that's where, so we started an initial analysis on this, and uh, we're hoping to do a little bit more of a thorough version of this, where we can see we have the building outlines. We know where the buildings are, even though this is at night. It's kind of interesting trying to map these things out because the scene in night does not match what we see in
Sure,
the day. But
sure.
we do know the building outlines. So what we've been able to do is say, all right, I want to know we're observing at a slight angle how much of that light is not coming from reflected like you're saying off the ground, but actually facades that
Hmm.
are on the side of the buildings. If we were looking straight down, you'd never see any of that. But we actually have an angle view, and we are like I don't have any of the scientific results yet because we're still doing the analysis. It's a little tricky to do,
Hmm.
but we're seeing a lot of glowing buildings.
Hmm.
You're seeing them from a side angle, but you're up in the stratosphere. The facade of that building is glowing like nobody's business. And now that's something we'd love to do more exploration of. Is like how much of this light is coming from window lighting, facade lighting, advertising. We see billboards, everything else just shining sideways a lot.
So
I
when
don't
we're
have a
looking,
quantity.
yeah, when it comes to the darkness restoration and preservation idea or dark skies, whatever it's called, I keep saying that because I don't know what it's called really, what best encapsulates it. But when I think about that, I think the solvable we're never going to get rid of, we could probably reduce light levels in parking lots. I mean, they're probably vastly overlit, actually, to be honest with you. But we do need to have a certain amount of light in areas, in cities, for safety reasons and so on and so forth. The portion that we can get rid of is that vertical light that you're looking at with the side camera.
Mhm.
I really think that portion of the light pollution piece could be 100% eliminated, if not, 99% or whatever. It's that re-reflected light off the earth. That's going to be very difficult to eliminate. I don't know. What do you think?
No, yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, see, what we're trying to do is say what's coming up. What's
Yeah,
coming up
what's
into the sky?
causing sky glow? What's causing light pollution? That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
ask you. Is it like if you did a parking lot in a perfectly dark sky approved, Pete Strasser flies out, he approves you. You know what I mean? From the IDA, this is awesome. You're still going to see that with your cameras, but is it contributing a significantly less to sky glow? Is it contributing significantly less to light pollution? Or is most light pollution re-reflected light off the earth? I'd love to know the answer to that question. Do you know it?
No, actually, I don't. That's one of the reasons why we're trying to do this research. But I could say that here's the thing that you know, the scattering of blue light. That's everything from the AMA to everybody else. Talks about blue light, and it's obviously why the sky is blue during the day is because light that's blue is like a fog. It scatters the particles in the atmosphere. It's gonna create a lot of the sky glow you're seeing. So it's like your point about okay, you got to light that street, or else it's gonna maybe the argument can be made you don't have to light them all, but for travel or safety purposes or whatever. But if you do it with lower light levels and you do it with less blue, you're actually this is something we can also observe from our missions is well how much of that is blue light, and we can quantify how much take a little bit more work, but how much that blue light is contributing to sky glow. I mean, when you're talking about not being able to see the stars, the sky glow is the thing that's doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're always going to have some reflected off of surfaces, right? So, like you said, if it's not light on the surface, it's not doing its job.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a complex problem. But I think, like what you're saying about the greenhouses, hey, if you can close down 90% of it, hey, I'd take that.
Yes.
But, yeah.
We need to take all the victories. Like, I mean, there's no, I don't like the word perfectionist. I think that a lot of people striving for excellence are accused of being perfectionists. And, so I think that, 90% is a good start. And that's a good place to start. And then, because oftentimes in these debates, and I've talked to a lot of people who historically have been in the IDA going back 30 years ago, 20 years ago, and I've spoken to them, and there was even 15 years ago, and there was hostility between the IDA and the lighting industry. There was some hostility there, some acrimony there in the past. And then I've spoke about this greenhouse. There's acrimony between the greenhouse operators and the thing. My opinion on the whole thing is that listen, the greenhouse guys are trying to make food. Okay, they're not or you know what, they're growing cannabis. They're doing something that they're allowed to do, and they've paid the taxes of the town, and they're employing people, and these are enterprises that you need to embrace into your world. And if you got them going for 90% right now, then you know what? Take that, fight somewhere else for a bit, and come back in a couple years and see if the standards can be shifted to 100% on new greenhouses and all this. This is an issue, Ken, for the 21st century. It's not an issue for tomorrow or the next day. It's something that we absolutely have to incrementally work towards. And if we need the lighting industry in on the education, on the awareness, on the advocacy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know why I say that is because the lighting industry is going to sell all these light fixtures if it actually starts to happen. You know what I'm saying? They're the ones that are going to be selling it. They're
Hmm.
the ones that are going to be consulting it. It's not going to be the IDA that does that. It's going to be people in the lighting industry. And so we need those people in. We need to embrace them and bring them in, which is the purpose of this show by the National Association of Innovative Lighting Distributors, is to
Hmm.
align the industry on the number one issue facing our industry, maybe not the world, but our industry. And so I want to ask you something. Is light pollution an environmental issue? And if it is, why is it not considered so by those outside of the lighting and IDA worlds?
Well, pardon my French, but hell yeah, of course it's an environmental issue. I mean, it's um, just the effects have been known for decades now, on everything from ecology to human health to just look at the climate footprint you have when you're overlighting things, to just loss of the night. Uh, those experience with our students who've never seen a star in the sky. You just add all that up, and it's like this is a pollutant. Um, Now, I think this is all we're on the sort of a incoming crest of a wave, where I look at it from maybe a research perspective, where it's like uh, we didn't have the data, we didn't have the information. So if you ask me, 10, 15 years ago, hey, what's the problem? How do we solve it? I'd say, well, I can't see the stars. I'm not sure how to solve it. I don't have the data. I don't have the answer for you. But nowadays, like I said, with advent of satellite observations, with the advent of new instruments and a growing research community, we're actually finally starting to get the message out there with some information. And that's where I'm saying it's kind of a cresting wave, where it's like I think we're getting to the point where we have enough to be able to say, hey, raise our hand, say, you got to listen to this. And that's where we are right now, just at the beginning of that conversation.
Yeah, and it's interesting that um, the environmental movement per se has not embraced this issue, and um, well, at least I'm the host of the Restoring Darkness podcast, and I'm looking out for this stuff. Okay, and so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I have not heard anyone talk about it at that's a serious environmentalist other than being in this world already. I have not heard any. Have you heard any politician or any environmentalist or anyone speak to light pollution as actually being pollution and not a metaphor? I don't. I
Uh,
don't recall it.
yeah, I mean, so for example, Sierra Club, Audubon Society. I know there's some folks that,
There.
especially in the ecological realm, that are starting to really voice opinions about it. And then once again, I think it's we're maybe a small group of voices out there who are early adopters, trying to get everybody else on board. It's going to take some time, and I think it's coming around. I think it's coming around.
I think so too. This is a movement. That's what I call it. It's not controlled by anybody. There's leaders, obviously, the IDA being, the foremost leader in the movement. But there is something happening. I can feel it in the lighting industry. Nailed has bought in full 100%. And we're starting to see other areas. But the general public, so we put out 6 strategies for darkness restoration and preservation about a year ago. And as a response to the 5 principles of responsible outdoor lighting, which I thought was fantastic, that the IDA and the IES knocked heads together and came out with those simple 5 things. I thought that was great. And
Mm-hmm.
so it had nailed, and so they came up with 6 strategies. The first one was industry alignment. We're finding it very difficult, actually, the industry alignment piece. But the second part is advocacy and how we create awareness within the general public. The question becomes, why do people need nighttime? Why do they need darkness? And why is it more important than the other reasons that we're lighting the night up so much? Like, that's going to be the debate, right? Is why do we need this versus that? And that's going to be a way. That's where I think the rubber meets the road, with the safety being of paramount importance when it comes. I mean, I just saw another ad come out in my inbox from a company. They make sports lighting, and they switch your lights to LED for your sports field for more safety. And I thought to myself, like, how the heck do you know that it's more safe? Like, what metric are you using? How do you know? So people throw around the word safety as the ultimate straw man argument against anything they don't want to hear. You know, well, it's not safe. It's soon. Well, we're looking at lowering the Kelvin temperature, and don't worry because the color rendering index is the same amongst Kelvin temperatures and LED, and we want to shield these lights. No. Safety shuts all that down. And how do we get over? Like, that's a powerful straw. He may be a straw man, but he's a damn powerful shutdown straw man. That guy, that safety guy. How do we get over that one? Because that's going to be the real hurdle.
Yeah, put it this way. I literally had a conversation yesterday with a large city government here in the U.S. With their director of operations, and we were making the case for they're installing 4,000 Kelvin lights, street lights, and we were saying, we even looked at the product and CRI of the 4,000K and the 2,700K were exactly the same, 70. And it's like, okay, well then, because they were talking about the safety, about color rendition for, identifying, car colors and things like that, whatever. I said, but you got the same color rendering index. Okay, you could argue that, whatever, but, and they said, well, we're going to have to take it back to our safety people because they said the 4,000K is better for safety. I'm like, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like, where are they getting this from? That once again, it's going to have to go back.
It's a false axiomatic presupposition. And when you have somebody that believes, look at any lighting person that works on the front lines with customers knows this. If you tell somebody, do you want the white light or do you want the yellow light? They're always going to say, I want the white light. Like simple, well, give me the white one. Yeah, the white's better, right? Or whatever. That's just how it's going to be, right? People are going to make those decisions. They have no data to prove, no research to prove that their 4,000K lights are superior to the 27K for any of the reasons. But Mr. Strawman, Safety Strawman, somehow is able to shut everyone else down by claiming that he is right and everyone else is wrong. And everyone else has to provide all the data. Everyone else has to provide all the things and satellites and shoot balloons into the sky. But Mr. Strawman never has to provide any data. He doesn't. What are you talking about? I know you have to prove me wrong. How did we get to this point with this kind of attitude? It's a false axiomatic presupposition, Strawman. Get a grip. That's what I say.
I testify because I hear you. Because I think it's going to take a lot more knocking on doors and giving the pitch. Given you can give them the science, you can also give them the experience. And remember, I was saying earlier about people not even having the experience of what the alternative could be. I have a question for you. So you're saying, if you had a client there saying, do you want the white light or do you want the yellow light? They're going to say, I want the white light. And I'm asking you, do you think they're looking at that during the day? They're like, they're in a showroom or whatever, and they're like, I want that light. I want to see them literally see that 5,000K light in their face in their own, backyard compared to the yellow light, and they go, hey, wait a minute, maybe this isn't the best. Do you know what I mean?
Totally.
You have to experience it. Yeah.
I totally understand what you're talking about. And it's simple as this, is that for whatever reason, 5,000 Kelvin or 4,000 Kelvin appears more white. That's what people want in these commercial and industrial settings and office buildings and all this sort of stuff. In the past, that correlated with higher color rendering index, right? So that was the truth, right? So, a F40 T12 Chroma 50 was the only way that you could get 95 plus CRI out of a fluorescent tube. If you did it at a warmer temperature, it couldn't achieve those CRI levels. So there was a time when that correlation between color rendering and color temperature was true. Now, that's not the case anymore. The second thing is, what level of color rendering do you need? I mean, seriously. We're not talking about taking out a 90 CRI LED light and replacing it with low pressure sodium with 13 CRI. Okay. Even if lower Kelvin temperatures have a lower color temperature rating, it's way better than the high pressure sodium lamps you're using now, sucker.
Yeah, exactly.
Which are 22 on a color rendering scale. So like now you're saying, no, to go from 22 color rendering to 90 color rendering or 70 or whatever it is, we're willing to sacrifice all other concerns because of straw man and his safety argument. You know what? I'm sick of straw man. I've had enough of his bull crap.
Yeah.
Okay? It's unbelievable that people can make these statements with zero shred of evidence and be believed and feared, and everyone else that's trying to point them into maybe a different direction or a better direction. You're not against changing the lights in Indianapolis or anywhere else, right? Because we want to save energy. So I don't know how we beat Strawman, though. He seems to have a very powerful grasp over the levers of power.
Okay, so wait a minute. Let me ask you this then. Is that, you said the first nailed principle was industry alignment?
Mm-hmm.
Well, isn't it the industry that's, helping to promote that?
Well, we asked them. Look, dark skies, darkness restoration, what generally the DLC, I'm going to say something good about the DLC, Scott. Unbelievable. For the first time ever in the history, they've been very progressive with their Luna program, and they should be applauded for that. And they've done a lot of work there. Yes, all you folks at the DLC, for the first time, you got to cut this into a quote for social media. For the first time, I think they've done a good job with their Luna program and sort of, but they're not in the lighting industry. So the DLC is a standards organization for utilities. They're not actually within the lighting industry, although they work very closely with the lighting industry. The IES has a lot of things going on. The IES would be one of the major contributors, and they could bang heads together with NEMA, which is the National Electrical Manufacturers Association. So I'm not going to speak on behalf of NEMA, but I'm going to try to summarize. What NEMA wants is the same standards for every state, right? They want it to be the same everywhere so you can manufacture stuff and it works and everybody's happy, right? So those two could knock heads together. It's just not a priority for them. They don't see it. They don't see providing natural darkness, is how I would word it, as a priority for the lighting industry, which to me is where the paradigm has to shift. It's like, if we're using electric light at night and we are imposing ourselves upon nature, we have a fiduciary duty to limit that imposition as much as possible for its own sake, and then all the other reasons. But simply for its own sake, this idea that there's no maximum light levels, like that's just a legacy, right? That's a legacy that's a legacy problem. And so the lighting industry alignment is proving to be extremely difficult. Now, why this is? I think it goes back to, listen, I don't want to get into talking about any other subject, but I think in the last 2 years, we've observed how difficult it is for people to admit they're wrong. Okay? Like, it's been on, like, I don't care what side of that debate over the last 2.5 years you're on. Clearly, we have a problem with our officials saying, you know what? We didn't know. Two things they can't do. They can't say, we don't know, and we were wrong. This was actually a mistake, right? No matter where you stand on the issues, that's true. We've observed it. It's proven. Everybody's been videotaped, and you see these reels of changing messages over the course of 2 years, and it's crazy. So I think there's a problem in the lighting industry with people saying, oh man, that means that all those outdoor lights I did in the last 15, 20, 30 years of my career has been, wrong. The way I look at it is, listen, fess up and let's all get rich. Okay? Like, what are we waiting for? People are like, we should be shouting this as an industry from the rooftops. Why? Because the lighting industry is going to sell all the new equipment that we need. And people are banging their heads against the wall to find a decent application for network lighting controls. Hello! RestoringDarkness.com. Check it out. We have the ultimate application for network lighting controls. The ultimate one. Think about how many studies you could do anywhere in the United States or Canada where you had a city and you could control the light output, the color, the temperature, everything, and never even for darkness reasons, just for safety reasons, for crime, what kind of crime happens in this light, can we eliminate vagrancy by, if there's a lot of vagrancy, can we just brighten the lights up real bright in this area for a little while and those people will move on? You know what I'm saying? There's so much wonderful things for network lighting controls in municipal street lighting. I'm screaming it for so long, like this is the application for network lighting controls. Finally, the lighting industry is trying to help with circadian and this kind of thing. Well, then stop shining lights into people's houses. Stop shining lights at all the wildlife and messing with their nocturnal species and all this sort of stuff. This is the issue for the 21st century for this industry. Period. End of the story. And the best part about it is, guys, as soon as we admit that we screwed everything up, as soon as we just say, don't even say it publicly, just say it in the private rooms, we messed up. We got to fix it. Who's going to fix it? We get to fix it. And we're going to sell a ton of light fixtures. So I don't understand why people are not embracing this whole hog. It's a friggin' cash pig. Like, seriously for us. So there's my little 2 cents.
I would have related to that. I kind of want to go back a little bit to that. We were talking about all the uplight we're seeing that it's reflected off the surface. Well, it's obviously lighting the surface, right? But, some of our flights will be at like past 11 o'clock at night. And like, okay, well, why is this reflecting off a surface of the top of a parking garage, which is empty at a business that's closed? So there's your controls, by the way, which is also a huge issue. It's like, you can do proximity sensors, motion sensor, PIDs, I don't know, however you want to do it. That's your business to solve. But the idea is that you got another opportunity to, make things smart, make things do the job they're supposed to do, but also not ruin the rest of the environment. Yeah.
Listen, they are literally banging their heads to find an application for network lighting controls in the interior environment. Okay? I'm serious. A business case for it. Okay? And I've been telling everybody, like, stop wasting your time. Like, the best application is parking, municipal street lighting. Outdoor parking, municipal street lighting. Like, come on. This is most obviously the best application for it. And you're right. You can very easily control these devices now with a multitude of languages and software systems and sensors and everything else. And you can save a ton of energy but we're using network lighting controls on outdoor, municipal, street lighting, parking, this kind of stuff. It is an absolute no-brainer, and nobody talks about it. So there, I said it. I'm talking about it every single time I record this show. Until I'm hoping, you know who should do it. You know who can do it, and hopefully will, is PNNL. I'm hoping that the folks at Pacific Northwest National Laboratory will, get some funding and sort of say, okay, let's try it. Let's try a couple streets in Portland, right where we are, and maybe in a low-income neighborhood, and see if we can, and they can even add in their light equity and justice and all those kind of other things that they want, make them beautiful, the wonderful Kelvin temperatures. They can add all that other stuff as well. And then they can have access to those lights and control the levels, control the color, it's such a wonderful place to start with network lighting control. That could go on forever.
No, I hear you. Once again, it goes back to that first premise I said, where you got to see the difference. If you can experience what it could be, then you might say, hey, you know what? It doesn't have to be like this. And so, yeah, more experiments, man. Let's try it.
LEDs are both the problem and the solution, which is great. We have all the technology. We have everything we need. We just need the will to do it. And we'll hopefully get there. One thing that was interesting that I saw the other day was a tweet that came out, and maybe I can find it for Scott and he can overlay it. Was a commentary on the difference between capitalism and communism. Okay, which is not an area I like to dive into. Okay, I have my own opinions on all that sort of stuff, but it was showing North Korea and South Korea's light pollution, and it was saying, "See how great capitalism is? Look at all the light pollution in South Korea." And there's no light pollution in North Korea, which means those guys are in abject failures. And it's like, that's what we need to turn around right there. Is that the success is when you have less light pollution or no light pollution or minimal light pollution, whatever the right term is there. That would be the where the paradigm turns on. Ken, we've gone an hour, if you can believe it.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. I know that people can find you at K Walczar. That's KWALZ for you Americans, ARZ for us Canadians.
Mm-hmm.
K at KW.
I don't tweet that often.
What's that?
I don't tweet that often, but hey, you'll get to know me there.
Find him there. We're gonna post his research up there. It was a pleasure to talk to you, man. Any final thoughts for the listeners out there?
Like you mentioned about the ecological or maybe the health or whatever impacts of light pollution. We can't just think about the night sky and whatever, maybe the wasted energy. But I was thinking about the other day, and it was like realized that the importance of the night for us and for animals, even plants, is up to biology. It's not up to us. So we're meddling with something that is, we don't even know the ramifications of now. It's only been a little more than a century that we've really been doing what we've been doing to our nighttime environment. And I'd hate to stick around a few more centuries to find out, like you said, we were wrong. Just admit it now. And, hopefully we can make this all a lot better.
So many things in life. It's interesting. I've applied this so many different places. So, do you know how, like, when somebody's struggling in life, and whether that's in a marriage or in a relationship or just personally with some of the traumas of their past or whatever, and they go to a therapist, right? And so they're talking to their therapist about all the things that happened in the past, right? And what you'll find is, like, that person, I would love to do a series of podcasts where I interview marital therapists, just like to get their stories. Okay.
But, for punishment, huh?
Yeah. No, I love it because I had a friend and he would tell me oftentimes I have to fire my clients because I'm becoming a referee for their fights. And so what's interesting is that I think most people need coaching. Okay. Rather than therapy. Now, some people do need to unpack their traumas and go through what happened to them, especially if they're very serious. But actually, what most people go to a therapist for, whether it's a marriage or personal or whatever, they actually want to make their future better, right? It's not that they want to change the past. Maybe they do, but they can't change the past, right? But what really the goal should be is to make tomorrow better the next day in the next 10 years, right? Who cares what happened in October 1985? Really? You know what I mean? That's behind us now. Can't do anything about it, right? Maybe there needs to be some healing, and I'm not belittling, major traumas. I'm talking about, marital stuff and, fights and people have and, whatever. And one of the things that we can do with coaching is the first thing that a good coach will tell you to do in life is they'll say, stop damaging your life. Stop the damage, right? So what is that process about? Well, the process of stopping the damage is really a process of saying, what am I doing to damage my life or my relationship with my spouse or whatever, right? And if half the time, this one therapist said, half the time, if people just stop damaging themselves in the relationship, that would probably be enough to save everything, right? Never mind improving your life. Right? And so how do you stop the damage? The first thing you do to stop the damage is admit that you're doing damage. Just admit you screwed up. Like, admit that you mess up. We're all human beings. We all make mistakes, Ken. And if the lighting industry would just say, you know what? The LED lighting boom was good for so many different reasons. We saved tons of energy. We got rid of mercury. in our lighting system. We did so many wonderful things. But you know what? We missed the darkness restoration piece. We missed the dark sky piece. We missed that. And you know what?
Fix it now.
Yes. Yes. Just admit it, lighting industry. Just admit it. And if you admit it, you will have a bonanza like you have. The LED bonanza will just be part 2. And we'll get circadian and controls and everything in there. If you made it to the end of all my rants, which I probably doubt it, but hopefully if you did, you know I like to rant on that. If you're listening to this show, I've said a lot of this stuff before, so I apologize for repeating myself. But that point needs to be made on the lighting controls and on the industry. Pull the heads out of the sand of everyone around you, all you listeners out there that love Restoring Darkness. Grab your colleagues and pull their heads out of the sand. Let's go. This is a boom. Thanks for listening.
Look no further for dark sky-friendly products than Evluma. Since its first product launch, Evluma has carried 1 or more International Dark Sky Association certified models. If your customer cares about light pollution, suggest the OmniMax with shielding or the Area Max with full cutoff to reduce uplight and glare. Evluma, illuminating the pursuit of darkness.